Thank you very much. Well, there's been a lot of philosophy these days, and in a way, I'll start where the others have stopped. I'll talk about discrimination again, but in more concrete terms, and then more, what do we do about it more practically, you know. So this one may not be an uplift, you know, but it will give an insight into what a small organization in a small country, how it's working, what are the challenges and how it's working. And don't ask me how far we got. Now, the first point of the discrimination is that the gender equality of the act in Norway favors women and discriminates men. And the way it does it is already in paragraph number 1, where it says the legal objective is to forward gender equality independent of sex. And the act aims especially to improve the position of women. Now, we've got the word in Norway for that, it's called spagat. You go into the spagat, you know. And the ballet dancers know what that is. You split your legs. You know. But the interesting thing is that when they discovered that the first sentence could be used for men to get access to female-dominated studies and places of work, they could be quoted in. Then they started to redefine the law, you know, and say that according to the official interpretation of the relationship between the two contradictory goals, the law not only prioritizes the improvement of the position of women before men, but also forbids the prioritizing of underrepresented men in women-dominated employment areas, as it would reduce the women's position on the labor market. Yeah. So this is a catch-22. There is an exemption, I must say, because when the Parliament, some men in Parliament reacted on this first paragraph and the second one, they said, well, it's important for men to be working in education for children and care for children, because that's gender sensitive. And so they made a prescription, or not a law, but it's in the regulations or something. We would say that, well, just in the fields of education and care for children, then men can be, in a way, enhanced to work or a place before women. But that sounds very good. But it's a sleeping act, because it's the women who employ men. You know, they are the bosses. They run these services, and they run the schools. They are the chief, the presidents or the chiefs of the school, and they don't use this paragraph at all when they go to get new teachers and they advertise it. They never say men are wanted. You know, so it's a sleeping paragraph, and it doesn't mean anything. Now, the final thing here on this item is that the Norwegian gender equality apparatus is supervising and reporting on the Gender Equality Act is completely women-dominated, headed by the Ombudsman for Gender Equality, an important post held solely by women for the last 40 years. So here is what we call the goat is watching or the horse is watching the oats sack, you know. It's catch-22. Now, the discrimination of boys and fathers starts right after birth. Mothers can withheld the identity of the father for both child, father and the public authorities, with no negative consequence for her, and she even receives public alimony for it. Mothers can falsely appoint an innocent man as father for a child, with negative consequence for the child and man, who will have to pay child allowance for £300 monthly for 18 years, because he hasn't got a chance to demand a blood test if he can't be the real father or not. So if she says that's a father, he just has to accept it and pay. The real father is, contrary to the mother, not granted automatic parents' rights for the child, and the child not automatic right to the father. So there is discrimination in the family, and it starts right after birth for the children. The discrimination of boys continues in kindergartens and schools. Most boys are refused access to male personnel in most kindergartens, as 90% of all kindergarten personnel are women, and attempts to recruit more male personnel are half-hearted. Most boys have little access to male teachers, as 80% of all teachers are women, and there are no serious attempts to recruit more male teachers, students, or qualified teachers. The educational system in kindergartens and schools is more adjusted to the nature and needs of girls rather than the boys. This problem is aggravated by the feminine dominance and culture in these arenas of learning, and boys are not giving adjusted education according to the education regulations. It's adjusted to girls. The female bias in education accounts in part for the weaker school performances of boys, and higher dropout rate and lower marks than girls, and less chances of obtaining academic studies and careers. Well, not only are boys discriminated, but fathers are also discriminated in the social and legal system. Fathers are not receiving the same public information about his child that the mothers receive, for instance, from school. You know, if there's something wrong with the school, or even meetings in the school, the father is not invited, even if, you know, if they know that he lives not in the same address as a woman. Paid parental leave is unevenly distributed between mother and father, with fathers' leave quota only 1/5 of mothers. Now, this is quite fantastic. The men has got 10 weeks family leave or parental leave paid, but the mothers have 50 weeks. And the father's leave was just cut off. They lost 2 weeks, so from 12 to 10. The Iceland has a fine system with there's 1/3 for the woman, 1/3 for the mother, 1/3 for the father, and then they can share the last third. This is what we are fighting for. But as you see, men only get 1/5 of the quota. Family counselors and court judges resist granting shared parenting to fathers. Police and/or courts do not charge or punish mothers for promoting unlawful false accusations of violence and incest against fathers in order to prevent father and child from seeing each other. I heard this from other people too. You know, this is obviously a sort of Western European thing. Neither for violation of father and children's legal rights to sabotaging contact between them, the contact between father and child, and that is perhaps the main reason why the members of the men's forum that I represent are getting organized. This is the sort of top injustice they can not obtain, but experience, you know, and they get really furious about it. So they come to us, luckily, instead of throwing stones. Male students are discriminated at universities. The gender ratio in Norwegian universities is 2 female students for 1 to 1 male student. The former female Minister of Higher Education, she's a woman, expressed satisfaction with this grave gender imbalance by proclaiming that this female majority was an intended result of the gender equality policy of the government. She was a socialist, of course. Female students are offered 132 active recruitment incentives to choose and enter the few male-dominated academic faculties like math, physics, and engineering. Whilst there are only 2 incentives for male students to choose and enter many female-dominated faculties, and these 2 are on veterinary studies. It's more important to have men treating animals than treating, boys or children. Simple mathematics proves that the gender imbalance will only worsen in the future. Female postdoctoral students and staff are given special advancement courses and coaching to create more female professors at the expense of qualified male candidates. If that isn't enough, the next is the highest degree of gender imbalance is found in gender teaching and research. Norway's official centers for gender equality research. 90% of staff and students are women, and still no active recruitment incentives are given to improve the gender imbalance. These feminist hotbeds are, on the contrary, so wary of losing their gender academic monopoly that they refuse to adjust and balance the curriculum to attract more men. I took a course there, and it was a course in feminism, not gender knowledge. Well, I can see this is getting pretty black, but male politicians are discriminated in the party systems. We talk about why don't the male politicians do anything? Well, they are actually discriminated in the party system, a bit willingly. They don't do much resistance, I think. But the fact is, the end is that national gender equality or family policies are decided in the political parties. And 7 out of 8 Norwegian political parties have established special women only subcommittees or networks to develop the party's gender and family policy. So the gender and family policy is run by the women in the party. This is their domain. These political party women networks cooperate across the party barriers to keep female supremacy in gender and family law and secure women's interests in other areas. So it's not only political, it's also cross-political. Male politicians who are speaking up against gender discrimination of men, fathers and boys, are jeopardizing their chances of party nomination and re-election. And that is a fact that keeps most male politicians tied on accepting feminism and even supporting it. If this isn't enough, there is more discrimination coming. Men are discriminated in the public sector. The Norwegian public sector is dominated by women, with 70% of the jobs held by women, both top and bottom. Women are especially dominating in the gender-sensitive professions of child and family care, education, health, and gender management, with up to 85%. The position of National Gender Equality Ombudsman has been held only by women for the last 40 years. Well, I've said that before, but I can repeat it. In practice, a feminine monopoly. The main problem may not necessarily be the gender imbalance, but that the authorities make virtually no effort to recruit more men to improve the balance. And even in the health system, men are discriminated. It's legal to circumcise boys, not girls. Same as here. Men's health challenges does not receive the same public attention as women's health, even though men's lifespan are years shorter than women's. More men die from prostate cancer than women die from breast cancer. Still, only breast cancer is screened by the authorities. 3 times more men than women commit suicide, but women's psychological problems receive more attention in the media and by the authorities. Male pensioners are discriminated by the pension system, having to pay for more pension years than they can expect to live. That's to get parity with women, because they live longer, they should pay more high pension rates, but installments. But due to gender equality, they all pay equal sums. And the women receive more. Now Norway scores on top of international gender rankings. I think that's no surprise to anyone. We are one of the best countries for women in international ratings. We're one of the best countries for mothers. Now, there is no rating just for girls, but I'm sure that would be pretty much on top at the first look. But in the longer perspective, is it so? What will when the girls get women and grown up, will the society look better for them when they get there? I don't think so with the development we've got now. So we've got an organization to sort this out in Norway. That's a men's forum. It's a young and small organization, but the largest for men and fathers in Norway. And that doesn't mean much, but we are 100 paying members, and last year we were 50. So by next year we should be 200. You know, if it rises the same length. We have 2,200 followers on Facebook. We're happy about that. We are open for women members, and some of the women are very valuable members. One of them is writing a book about men's plight or the father's plight in the system. So they're very valuable members. We've got a steering board of 6 plus 3, a budget of 20,000, and that looks quite good for an organization of 100 paying members. But we get money from the state. We apply to support for activities, and we have got money this year for some activities, and even for sort of the general running of the thing. And it was only then that we discovered how much money went to feminist organizations, because we are small male and we didn't apply for much, you know. But the female organizations, they get about 100,000 Norwegian kroner each. No. 100,000 pounds. That means 1 million Norwegian kroner. So it's incredible how much money is in the system. So when we wondered, you know, how did we get money? We didn't think we would. You know, when you see the sums, you understand that, you know, this is just for the good conscience that they give us a bit money. So I would address mansforum.org for those of you who want to go in and watch our homepage, which is not quite up yet. You know, wait till August, then it will be up and going. So what do we want to work with? Well, we got our visions and goals, and one of them is that gender equality for men and women, fathers and mothers, boys and girls. Also, we include the women and the girls and the mothers into the gender equality, our goal. We want equal worth, rights and duties, possibilities and support. We want to counter state feminism efforts to convert a relatively gender-balanced society into a female supremacy or a matriarchy. That's the way it may go if we don't succeed. To give a voice to men, fathers and boys against gender discrimination. We want to gather support for the removal of gender bias in the Gender Equality Act and system. To gather support for changing and the unjust preferential system for mother's superior position to the father in the care and upbringing of their children. And to gather support for legal action against mothers who forward false allegations of violence and incest against innocent fathers. So we've got a lot to work for. We've got a lot of visions and goals. And here are our actions. We've got monthly demonstrations outside the national parliament. There are about 20 to 30 to 40 men who we got the banners ready. And we meet there and have a demonstration for about an hour and a half in 30 degrees frost below zero and in 30 above. And but there is a vital social thing about this, because after the demonstration we go to a pub, you know, and we have a meal and we have a chat. So that keeps some of our members up, because they can talk to other members and get support in their cases. Now, we participate actively in media debates. We participate actively in lobbying of politicians and gender equality bureaucrats to remove the legal and systematic discrimination of men and fathers. We have quarterly, also quarter yearly, I must say, open debating seminars on men and fathers' challenges, also for a year. Members support to fathers in distress through a telephone system. And then this year, the big item is, or the big arrangement, is the Nordic Conference for Men and Fathers on the International Men's Day, 19th of November this year. So all Scandinavians or Nordics in this room are invited. You'll find the invitation on our homepage, and if we get your names and address, we can send your invitations. To the Finns, I'll only say we'll speak in Norwegian. We'll speak in the Nordic languages. So the Finns, we won't have translation for their sake. They should have learned Swedish at school instead. It's on the.
Will that be in Oslo?
That'll be in Oslo, yes. And finally, I must, on the behalf of the association, thank Mike and Paul for this initiative. We think that arranging this important conference and increasing men and fathers' awareness and knowledge to the massive and systematic injustice to men, fathers and boys is great. It's a great inspiration for us all to move to the necessary action. And maybe we'll see you in Norway next time. Not next year, but hopefully with the generous support from our Lady Minister for Gender Equality and Discrimination Affairs, we will get money in the future to invite you and arrange it. So, and my final words will be, you've probably seen this quote before, famous British Prime Minister during the war, who said in the London radio to Norwegian forces during the war, "We shall never surrender." Thank you.
Speaking of Norway as from a German perspective, relatively rich country, what about private property? How is this divided between the sexes?
Well, I think it's the same as in the Western world, that the men owns most, for historical reasons. And they probably still do, but we see that more and more women in business and are investing in property. So it's evening out. Mm.
Yeah, I, like a number of other people here, probably come aware recently of the series of documentaries done by Harald Eyer. Don't quite know how to pronounce his name. Obviously, we all think they're very good, but could you perhaps remind us, has it really made any difference, or did people just look at them as a bit of light entertainment and then went back to business as usual?
Well, since not everybody knows about this program, it was on the national television, a program with he's part comic, but he's a sociologist, so he knows what he's talking about. And he was talking about, he was in fact addressing some of the gender researchers for their belief that all influence on gender qualities or attitudes were through environment and not biological. That men and women were alike. There were no biological differences apart from the obvious, and so they're all attitudes in life and to gender is due to the environment where they live, through the cultural impulses. And so he addressed them by interviewing experts in America and England who went all political correct, to the political correct researchers in Norway. And they know that the Norwegian gender researchers were unjust by this, because it was obvious that the English and the American researchers were right. So that in a way, it took off the momentum of feminism in Norway, but it's kept there. It hasn't grown in a way, but it's stayed there. They haven't sort of started reversing the laws and the regulations and the culture, but it's created a sort of suspicion on feminist intentions and truths That's been very healthy for the Norwegian state. So when we get money from the ministry now, it's because it's a political party now, a conservative one, who supports men. They see that there are men lacking in the system, and especially the fathers are getting a tough job. So she's now sending laws and regulations to Parliament to reverse some of this, you know. So it has had an effect, I'm sure. But we're not there yet.
So my question is, sorry to hear about the feminization in Norway. I thought it was bad enough here in the UK. But I'm interested in the damage that this feminization has done in Norway. So, for example, with drug addiction, male suicide, and perhaps if I could use an extreme example of Breivik. I actually read Breivik's manifesto, and a large part of that manifesto was railing against feminism. That was completely suppressed in our media here in the UK. They just presented him as like a right-wing Nazi, but at no point did they pick up on his attack on feminism. Mm-hmm. So my question is, are you expecting any more Breiviks to happen in Norway as a result of this feminization?
Well, we are, when we go to the gender equality ombudsman, the woman, they take a meeting with us, they listen to us, and they pose us questions, you know, and so we have a dialogue with them. So we don't necessarily go hard out against feminism, you know. As it was said here before, you know, it only creates more resistance if you attack them. So we go more on facts, you know, and dialogue on what's happening with men and boys now, and how shall we work about it. So, but I think the press is fairly feminized, and yeah, it's the same pattern as with most people here, or most countries. But we recognize that there's something changing in Norway. There are some female feminists, not male. They haven't got the balls to write about this, you know. But but they're women. There are some women who started questioning the female, you know, how fantastic this is, and if what's happening to our boys, what's happening to young men, and they see that young men are just like in England, dropping out in stronger numbers, and feebling out, and not going to university, you know, which is dominated by women, and so they see there is something happening, and perhaps they have a son, they have a brother, they have a father, and perhaps they see this happening to them, and then through this they are questioning feminism, and they give us not too much support, but they're posing the questions. And this woman, as I said, who is a member of us, who wrote this book, she came to us through this her brother, who was you know, getting divorced, lost contact with the children because of the mother's actions here, and then she thought this was so unjust for him, and so how downbroken he was, that she started working for men and us, and she's in the board, you know. She's a great woman. She's doing great work. So I think some of what the Germans see, the English, perhaps the Americans, we see that women have more balls than boys in this fight, you know. And one of the things we think about is how are we going to shall we go to the men and say that they are cowards, you know, or will that create a resistance? We haven't solved this, so as it is, there are women who want to work for us, and that's very valuable, and that goes on. But I think at one stage we have to pose the questions. Not only feminists are they're doing too much. The boys are doing far too little. The men are far too little engaged. They are not solidary. We must get the boys out, you know. Oh, thank you.
Fabrizio from Italy. Just a question that is very well related to the previous comment, because I was asking you, how can you have an anti-feminist stance in position in Norway? Because in 2012, Okay, now it's better? Okay, I was just about to ask you, how can you have an active feminist position in Norway? Because in 2012, in your country, in Oslo, it was published a document from the Nordic Association, I don't know, which basically they asked especially to censor anti-feminist speech. I can quote a very few sentences that are inside the Verbeleg,
appendix. Yeah.
Appendix of this document. Very briefly. Anti-feminist threats and harassment must be legal. Low threshold services for reporting threats and harassment must be established. We recommend that the Nordic government establish low threshold services for reporting anti-feminist and extremist threats and harassment. Annual mapping of anti-feminists must be conducted. Research on anti-feminism must be given priority, and so on and so on. I just wonder, how can I do basically freedom of speech and freedom of association and a voice in Norway, I mean the media, if they I can continue with this document, especially, sorry for my English, ask for censoring the voice of anti-feminist people?
Well, the answer is that it's not adopted. That recommendation was not adopted, you know. But there was a male organization who supported it, Reform. They were sitting in the group, Nordic group, and but then there was a change in government. Then the Conservatives came in with this Norwegian version of ATV in Germany, which is called Alternative for Deutschland or something. Is it? Yeah, yeah. So it's a right wing, and they don't like too many immigrants in and that sort of thing. But they also put a woman in the head of the Ministry of Gender Equality and Children and Youth. And so she was for our case. She was divorced herself, and it saw the challenges of her sons and the whole system. So she was favorable to this. So she, as I said, she's initiated now lots of changes of laws and regulations to balance up this sort of imbalance imposed by the socialist government on the feminist side, you know. So that's what makes it possible. Now we will see how long she lives, or how long she stays in office, because there are elections next year. And will she reach to change these laws, you know, with the support of the Conservatives in Parliament before she leaves, or is it kicked out? Or perhaps she's re-elected. I mean, we have written a letter to all the parties, you know, with things that we say we want. Your party should pay heed to men's challenges and boys' challenges, and introduce this and this in your new party program for the election, you know. And we'll see how much goes into this. But maybe men take to the, at least time, and even if I'm a social democrat, I can say, this time I'll vote Conservative to keep her in office, to fulfill her work, to revoke the injustice done by the former government.
Yes, you had a rating, international rating of Norway being #1 for mothers and women. Is there one for men and fathers? And where does Norway rank there?
There is one for fathers. I didn't want to take it because Norway ranked 4th. We came on top there too. But who set the indicators? Who decided the indicators that were, or the rules for the game? That were the feminists, you know. So, of course, fathers' leave, maternal leave, or what you call it, weighed very high. And of course, we have the highest maternal leave besides Sweden, then, you know. And compared to other countries, we have a low unemployment rate for boys or men, you know. We in general, it's a low one in general. And the economy is good because of the oil and gas, you know. So on these indicators, Norwegian men don't have it too bad either, in that, relatively speaking. But fathers in broken families, they have hell, you know, just like in other countries.
To answer that earlier question, how do men and boys in Norway get their balls back? That'll happen when men and boys no longer have to ask for forgiveness for being men, and when society starts to allow men to take pride in being men.
I agree with that.
No, we can't wait for that, you know. What we have to do is trying to build up our boys in the home, you know. The fathers have to tell the boys they're just as good as the girls, you know. And through this recruitment system for getting more male teachers, as the first one today, I think Bloomfield said that she sent her, as an atheist, sent her children, her boys, to a religious school because half the teachers were men, and they came out as men because they were used to male acting or pardon? Yeah, good role models. So I think that is and even in the creche or in the kindergartens, you have to go in there too. And well, that takes time too. I agree. So you have to work on more fields, you know. But it's at least fathers and grandfathers have to tell their boys, you know, that look, you're all right. You're very all right. Yeah.
Just a quick question. With your protest outside, I assume Parliament or wherever you're actually protesting, do you find that helps your recruitment significantly? Do you think you see you have a publicised protest, you get more people reaching out to you?
Yeah, but not directly, because there are lots of people passing by and they don't speak to us or anything. And we've done this for 2 or 3 years now, and no parliamentary representatives come to see us and talk to us. We told the newspapers what we're on about. They don't come either. But we've been on Russian telly because the children's care, or what you call it, the children, when they take the children from the family, custody, you know, also the children's care take custody of the children because in families that don't work. So we have a cooperation with them, that movement, you know, and there are lots of Russian women there who've seen, they're used to more violence at home, you know, so they beat their children sometimes, or the men, and then they lose the children put in by the state, Norwegian state. So that was, we've been on the Russian telly because of that, you know. No, the way we recruit men through this is a Facebook side, and on the Facebook, every time we have a demonstration, we are launching it, and then afterwards we show pictures and we report from it, and that gives fathers around the country a hope. You know, there are someone there near Parliament who talks on our side. So I'm sure, as I said, 80% of our members are fathers in distress like this and experience this. And that's our recruitment base for the moment. And they also see there is another organization called the Organization for True Parents, you know. But that's taken over by women, you know. Now there are 50% members women, and they're on the board, and they've got the chairman. And so they're feebling out. They don't speak the right language that our members want, you know. They want more direct action and more serious action. So that's it. Yeah, I can see it's petering out this discussion. So,
Guttorm, I'm afraid that there were some people who wanted to ask questions, but I'm afraid we're going to have to stop it there.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Guttorm Grundt.
Thank you.